Welcome everyone to the Words for You Oval Room, where virtually everything human, from relationships to politics, mental and behavioral health, to religion, spirituality, and the supernatural are discussed. Grace, mercy, peace, safety, and health to each of you across the globe. I am your host, Dr. Beverly, and I am who I am as called and chosen by the Lord. Today is October the 26th, 2021, and it is just about 11:15 a.m. Please don't forget to subscribe, tap the notification bell and the like button if you enjoy this. If you want to be notified about upcoming topics and do not want to miss any other brief videos. And also don't forget to share this video with others. Today we have a special guest, and I will be bringing him on any moment now. For right this moment, I'm going to pause. Please bear with me.
Sorry about that, Devin.
Welcome back.
Okay. So you're going to start this as always, the first one didn't occur?
Pardon me?
You're going to start the interview as though the first one didn't occur? So I'm starting from scratch, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen across the globe, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce you to the Honorable Donnie Tuck, Mayor of Hampton, Virginia. Welcome to the Words for You Oval Room, Mayor Tuck. I really appreciate your willingness to take time from your schedule to speak with me today. First, let me assure you that this will not be an extended interview. The format will be as such. I will pose questions, and then you will field them and give your response as you feel led to do. Are you ready, sir?
Well, first of all, it's very, very good to see you. It's been a number of years since we last saw each other. And even if you're in a box, it's still a great feeling.
Yes, it has been a long time. And I really appreciate you doing this. And it is really good to see you. First question, Mr. Mayor. What led you to enter the political arena and lead Hampton into a better future?
Let me say that the desire for public service began when I was in the first grade back in 1961 in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I grew up in a neighborhood that was 3 to 4 blocks from the heart of downtown Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And in my neighborhood, there were 3 unpaved streets. And my parents and neighbors for years and years tried to get those streets paved by signing petitions and appealing to the city. And it wasn't until I was that they finally paved those streets. And I always felt that individuals who pay taxes should receive benefits from paying those taxes. And so I was also inspired for public service by seeing the inauguration of President Kennedy in 1961. And so I just felt led. It took over 50 years, though, for that to become a reality, including 25 years of running and not winning at all. So for me, it's been a sense of a calling, and that's why I'm happy to be who I am now.
Amen. Question number 2. Mayor Tuck, how does your faith factor into your personal and political belief system?
Well, as I said earlier, I think it's been a calling. I don't think you pursue something for 50 years or pursue it for 25 years, I should say, without there being something about it. I used to tell my wife that there were times I heard messages, by my pastor in music and other messages I was listening to on the radio and different things I was reading that I was being led, and but it didn't always work out. And so there was that question about whether or not it really was something that God was leading me to do. But in terms of my philosophy, I just believe in fairness. I believe that, again, based on what I experienced as a child and my parents and my neighbors not having those paved streets, that I think there should be an equal distribution as much as possible of resources. So we are a 411-year-old city. We've got a number of older neighborhoods, and most of those are neighborhoods where many of our Black residents are. And if you drive through those neighborhoods, you'll see that they're lacking in infrastructure. And so I think what we need to do is try and make sure that they have the same quality of life as possible, as much as possible, as individuals in other parts of the city, and which means that whether or not we can put sidewalks and curb and gutter, we should at least try and improve the streets in the neighborhoods, try and make sure we improve the lighting and other types of things that will make people feel good about the neighborhoods in which they live.
Okay, thank you. Regarding the office that you hold as mayor, what challenges have you had to negotiate in your tenure that resulted in positive outcomes?
Well, I think, first of all, sometimes people think of the mayor of a city as a strong mayor. When I say strong mayor, if you look at mayors of cities such as New York, Chicago, Washington, Atlanta, Baltimore, maybe Detroit, those mayors run based on telling the residents what they plan to do and what they're able to do. Mm-hmm. In Hampton, we have a council manager form of government, which means that I have to find at least 3 other members of our 7-member council to vote with me on matters. Otherwise, right, I get defeated. And so some of the things that I think I've been able to accomplish are small in one respect, but I think they've been major in others. And one, we talked about trying to improve neighborhoods. Well, we have a strategy now to go block by block. And you say, well, block by block. Well, it costs a lot to do some of the improvements we want to do. But if you say we're going to do it block by block, that means that each year we're going to try and improve a neighborhood. We're going to make some improvements that should be visible to those residents. So I think that's positive. I think some of the things we've done with respect to infrastructure and sidewalks, and even probably the biggest thing would be the impact we're trying to make on some of the gun violence in our city that's disproportionately occurring among our young Black men and boys. So that's been something I've been really involved in over the last 5 years, that we're part of national organizations. I've created some local groups with clergy and all. So we're doing a number of things there, and those things aren't necessarily seen. Some are negotiated, other things are me just taking initiative because I, as mayor, can do those things.
Okay, thank you. With regard to the surge, speaking of which, and gun violence amongst the Black youth in Hampton, are you optimistic about seeing a decline anytime soon?
I'm very optimistic. I believe we started this work back in 2013 when a former council member called a consciousness raising meeting to point out that in the past year, we had 22 homicides, and all of the victims were young Black males between about 14 and 24, maybe a little bit older than that. But, and some were solved, some were unsolved. But since that time, what we've done is, particularly this year, within the last maybe 3 or 4 months, we have hired outreach counselors to go out into the neighborhood and just try and let people know about some of the services that are available, to try and talk to some of the youth who may be going down a wrong path. We are in the process of hiring what's called credible messengers. And these are individuals who in some instances are returning citizens, individuals who've been incarcerated, who now want to come back and help heal the communities that they've hurt. And we talk about credible messengers because there are a number of individuals in the communities who want to hear from those individuals who have lived that life. Unfortunately, but that's the choice they make. So we have that. We have the vice mayor and I, for about 2.5 years, have had what's called the Gun Violence Prevention Roundtable, where we've had youth in, we've had adolescents, we've had, again, some returning citizens and nonprofits, where we brought them in to find out, hey, what's behind this? And then what are some of the strategies we can employ? And one of the things we discovered was that there's a lot of unresolved trauma in our neighborhoods.
Mhm.
This is older individuals who have either been the victims of trauma, who witnessed it. These are sometimes youth, and you'd be surprised what the COVID-19 and all the lockdowns did as far as creating trauma among some of our
Wow.
youth. So I think trying to make sure that we help individuals with conflict resolution, that we have even hospital-based interventions where when an individual comes in who's suffering from a gunshot wound, that there are people who talk to that individual and counsel and try and caution against or advise against retaliation with the credible messengers. We're trying to treat this whole thing as a public health issue. And so you look at where it started and where it may be headed, and you try and interrupt it. And so we've got individuals now who are out talking to people who might be involved in retaliation, individuals who might become the victims themselves because perhaps they were the ones who were the creators of the violence. So there are a number of different strategies we're employing. We also have a group I created about 2+ years ago called Macedonian Call, which are clergy members, pastors, lay leaders, even some church members. And we brought them together and we're trying to create a mentoring program for some of our middle school youth, because we've been told that if you really want to try and change the trajectory of the young person's life, middle school may be the last opportunity that you have. And so we're looking at a number of different strategies. So I fully believe that perhaps in the next 3 years before I'm out, I leave as mayor, that we will make a significant impact on reducing the level of violence in our city.
Awesome. I am so glad to hear that. And the citizens of Hampton are going to be glad to hear it as well. Mayor Tuck, your leadership has resulted in major improvements in the city of Hampton. Can you tell us about past, present, and known potential projects that have or will improve the overall healthiness of Hampton, whether it is related to traffic, beautification, creative revenue, or other areas of consideration?
Well, Ed, that's a great question. And I tell people, look, there were people and things underway before I became mayor. And so it's easy to try and claim credit, but I refuse to do that. Back in 2005, 2006, before I was on city council, there were individuals who were on council and in city government, as well as residents, who said, look, we are a 400+ year old city. Well, we weren't 400 at that time, but we were approaching 400 years of age. We were a landlocked city, and that the only way that we could really grow is through redevelopment. So what they did was they devised, I think, 5 or 6 master plans for different communities and areas where they wanted to see improvement. And so what happened was the Great Recession came in 2008, 2009. So those plans were put on the shelf for a while. But coming out of 2013, 2014, we've been able to enact some of those plans. And so what we're seeing is community redevelopment, for the most part, all over the city. In some of the areas, which are some of our older neighborhoods, we're finding new housing being built. We talked about some of the infrastructure improvements. Mm-hmm. Some investments were made by the Redevelopment Housing Authority, but there's also been private investment, which is what they were trying to encourage with these plans. So one of the places we're most proud of is in our downtown. Back in the 1970s, there was urban renewal, which then the council basically tore down all the buildings in downtown, some of the older buildings. And so whereas you go to some of these other communities and you can see where they brought back their downtowns, well, they had something to start with. And so they just basically did historic preservation. In Hampton, we had nothing, and we didn't have anybody who's willing to invest. But about 5 years ago, we had an investor approach the city and said, look, I want to buy some of these properties that you have, and here's my plan. And so we're seeing that in our downtown. Eventually, in 3 phases, we'll see some 700 new housing units downtown, where currently there are hardly any. We'll see new commercial and retail development in downtown. Buckrow Beach is really coming back with the investments being made down there. We're hoping to have a hotel in addition to additional housing down there. In our Coliseum Central area, that's coming back. the old mall is gone, but we've got a town center and people who are doing live, work, play, as well as a lot of fine dining there.
Right.
And then, so I think the critical thing for us is to have redevelopment without having gentrification. And I think what's happening now is again, we're seeing that development in almost every aspect of the city. We're going to have a new community center. There was one called the Old Hampton Community Center, which is in our downtown, was torn down back around 2013 or 14 timeframe. And so it's taken a while to build it back, but that should open next spring. We're going to build a new aquatic center, which will have an outdoor play area, much like at Water Country USA. So we are a city that also dependent on tourism. And so these are things that will help improve our economy, hope our economic base, while not having to raise taxes on our residents. So there are a number of projects I could probably go into, but let's just say it's an exciting time to be in Hampton. And then
Wow.
let me just also point out, I didn't say it, but during the COVID, where a number of businesses were being shut down and some even going out of business, we probably had from maybe last June, July, up until even about 2 months ago, probably 14 new businesses that were opened by African Americans. And these were young African Americans, which shows that they believe that there are opportunities in our city, and that's extremely positive.
Wow. Awesome news. Thank you for that good news. Mayor Tuck, before we close out on this interview, are there any words of encouragement or wisdom that you would like to convey to the citizens of Hampton and to those across the globe that might instill hope and reduce the fear and uncertainty being experienced by many today?
Let me offer this, and I had mentioned it previously. When I was running for mayor back in 2016, only about 14 of our 29 schools were fully accredited. Now they're 100% accredited without conditions. We have established what's called the academies in each of our high schools. There are roughly 4 academies, but out of those academies are some 64 career choices. And this is almost like a try before you buy. So a person who wants to maybe be in the maritime or shipping or technological field can choose one of these academies to major in and can graduate actually with certificates that allows that person to go directly into the workforce. Several years ago, one of our former governors came to Hampton and talked about this being a model across the state because of what we're doing in Hampton. So I think our school system is becoming a system of choice, which is extremely positive. We've got individuals now who are actually coming from private school to enroll in Hampton City Schools. So that's a positive there.
Yes.
I know a concern is still, the sound of gunfire and the violence. And we know that all the local areas were experiencing that, an uptick in gun violence coming out of COVID. We're trying to address that. We know that safety is a big concern, and when people are fearful of their safety, then it reduces social activity. In other words, people don't come out in the evening for meetings. People don't shop. So a number of different things don't happen when people are fearful. So we're doing our best to mitigate that. We've got a new police chief, and he's got some new strategies. He came aboard back in July. So I think with him and the things he wants to implement, and with the things we're already trying to do on the other side, that we're going to get a real handle on that. I think the challenge again is that we're a 411-year-old city, that we are fully built out. So we can't look like a Charlotte. We can't look like a Richmond with tall skyscrapers and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got a lot of history. We've got a lot of families that have been here for a while. And so one of our challenges is to try and attract and retain young people, but I believe they'll come. And I think what will happen is that we will offer and offering a quality of life that you won't find in the big cities. You won't have the traffic issues. And one of the things when we talked about traffic earlier, talking about improvements, we are expanding the Hampton Bridge Tunnel, as well as the roads that lead to and from the tunnel. So we're going to get a handle on some of the congestion that's been a problem. So I think what you'll see is a lot more exchange between the South Side and the Peninsula. And I think that will also be great because what we found is some 30% of people who live in any of the cities around here work elsewhere. And so that'll be positive, that you'll have more commerce, job growth. I just think that anybody who's looking for a location that is somewhat laid back, that has a nice temperate climate, that enjoys being around water and enjoys history, will certainly enjoy a life in Hampton.
Wow, that sounds so promising. And I really appreciate that good news. And I'm sure that when people see this video, they're going to appreciate it as well. That concludes the interview with Mayor Donnie Tuck of Hampton, Virginia. And I personally thank you for taking the time to visit with the Words for You Oval Room platform and sharing yourself with all of us. And I want everybody to know, we actually recorded this prior to this one. And apparently I made the mistake of, once it was on pause, not to take it off of pause. And so the video was absent. And so Mayor Tuck was willing to immediately record again. And I'm really grateful for that.
Well, you're more than welcome.
And hopefully we'll get together again, not too far in the future.
Looking forward to it, and thanks for the text messages. Always encouraging.
Thank you. God bless, and talk to you soon.
Same to you. Be well.
All right.